Ethan Carter believed in the kind of love you could build a life around, quiet, patient, and real. The kind of love that doesn't sparkle in selfies but feels warm at 3 a.m. when the world goes silent. He worked long hours at a small tech startup in Seattle, dreaming of creating something meaningful, not just in his career, but in his heart. That dream had a name, Sarah Blake. He'd met her 3 years ago in a small coffee shop on Pine Street. She had spilled caramel latte all over his laptop, and instead of getting angry, Ethan had laughed. Her embarrassed smile, that soft apology, it was the kind of moment that stays. Within weeks, they were inseparable. She was studying marketing. He was coding his way through sleepless nights. They built each other's dreams, or so he thought. Sarah loved how Ethan made her feel, safe, seen, adored, but she also noticed what Ethan didn't have: money, cars, and the glamorous life her friends on Instagram flaunted. She never said it, but sometimes when Ethan handed her simple gifts, handwritten notes, a cheap necklace, homemade dinner, her smile faltered for a second. He noticed, but he never mentioned it. He thought love could fill the spaces money couldn't. One evening as the sun dipped behind Seattle's skyline, Ethan walked Sarah home from her college event. She looked stunning in a silver dress, glowing under the city lights. On their way, a black Mercedes stopped beside them. The window rolled down. Mr. Daniel, her new marketing professor, smiled. Wealthy, confident, mid-30s, with the kind of charm that dripped like honey.
Need a ride, Sarah?
It's fine, we're just walking.
But Ethan saw something flicker in her eyes: curiosity. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. For the first time, he felt small, like no matter how much love he gave, the world could still measure him in dollars. A week later, Sarah started spending more time at school. Late meetings, extra classes, group projects. Her texts became shorter, her calls rarer. When Ethan visited her apartment one night with takeout, she wasn't home. Her roommate said she'd gone out with Professor Daniel.
Maybe it's a project.
But deep down, something broke. 2 nights later, Sarah finally called. Her voice sounded distant.
Ethan, I think I need some space. It's not you, I don't know what I want right now.
He wanted to scream, but he didn't.
Okay.
And that was how the woman who once promised forever began to fade away, one silence at a time. 2 months passed since Sarah asked for space, but distance, Ethan realized, wasn't space. It was absence. Her texts stopped coming, her photos changed, the smiles became sharper, the dresses more expensive, the places fancier. One night, scrolling through Instagram, Ethan's thumb froze. There she was, Sarah in a black cocktail dress, standing beside Mr. Daniel, champagne glasses in hand, the caption reading, "New beginnings, Shocker, success, Shocker, grateful." His heart sank, but his mind refused to believe it. He told himself it was just work, just a professor helping a student, but the comments below told a different story. "You two look amazing together, power couple energy," and Sarah had liked them all. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. His phone screen glowed until sunrise. Every memory of their love replayed, the promises, the dreams, the "I'll never leave you." Now she was smiling in someone else's arms, a man who had everything Ethan didn't. A week later, Ethan saw her in person. By accident. He had gone to a hotel downtown to meet a potential investor for his startup idea. He was nervous but hopeful, a small chance to turn his career around. As he stepped into the lobby, laughter echoed from the bar. He turned and froze. Sarah, dressed in red, eyes sparkling under dim light. Beside her sat Daniel, his hand casually resting over hers. For a second, their eyes met. Hers widened, his heart shattered. She looked away first. Ethan wanted to walk up, to ask her why. But then Daniel turned, smirked, and leaned in to kiss her. That was the moment Ethan realized she had already chosen. Later that night he walked in the rain, his shirt soaked, his heart numb. He reached the same cafe where they first met. The waitress recognized him, gave a sad smile, and placed his old order: caramel latte, no sugar.
Maybe love really does have a price.
And hers was too expensive for him to afford. The next morning, Ethan deleted her number. He didn't text, didn't call, didn't beg, but inside, something dark began to grow. Not hatred, but a quiet fire. He swore one day he'd rise so high that she'd regret choosing gold over love. Months passed, but the ache didn't fade into proud some. And boban but the sum what in some was a someone. It's then, it's signing down at a bunch of Bawa Salvare. Ethan's heartbreak had become his motivation. The man who once spent nights waiting for a text now spent them buried in code, blue light reflecting off tired eyes. His startup, which had almost failed, began gaining attention. He worked relentlessly, building apps, networking, learning business strategy. Pain was no longer his weakness, it was fuel.
Bro, you barely sleep, one said.
I'll sleep when I'm where I'm meant to be.
Meanwhile, Sarah's world glittered, but only on the surface. She lived in a high-rise apartment with Daniel now. Lavish dinners, weekend getaways, expensive jewelry, everything she once dreamed of. Yet something felt missing. Daniel's attention wasn't love, it was control. He liked showing her off, his beautiful accessory.
Leave business to men, Sarah. You're perfect as you are. Her smile would freeze. Every time she posted a photo with him, her friends commented heart emojis. But deep inside, she knew she was living someone else's life.
Back in Seattle's downtown, Ethan's startup landed its first major investor. He was offered a chance to pitch at a major tech event, the same event Daniel's company was sponsoring. Fate had a strange sense of irony. On the night of the event, Ethan walked in wearing a tailored suit. One he'd bought himself, not borrowed. His name tag read, Ethan Carter, founder, Novatech. When he stepped onto the stage, the audience fell silent. He spoke with confidence, fire, and purpose. The kind born from pain turned into power. His presentation ended with a standing ovation. Investors crowded him. His app, a security platform for financial transparency, was revolutionary. And in the front row, sitting beside Daniel, was Sarah. Their eyes met again. This time, she was the one who looked small. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but Daniel clapped loudly, masking her silence. Ethan gave a faint smile and turned away. He didn't need her approval anymore. That night, as he stood by the window of his new office overlooking the city, his reflection stared back, stronger, sharper, colder.
You left me for gold, Sarah, but I became what gold couldn't buy.
And for the first time, he smiled, not from happiness, but from power. At first glance, Sarah's life looked perfect. Luxury cars, designer clothes, rooftop dinners, but behind the glossy posts and filtered smiles, she was breaking. Daniel, the man who once seemed like her dream, had turned into her cage. He was charming in public, affectionate, protective, even proud to call her his girlfriend. But in private, his temper was sharp as glass.
He hated when she talked to other men. He controlled what she wore, and every time she questioned his tone, he'd remind her, "You should be grateful, Sarah. Without me, you'd still be struggling with that broke boy from your past." Those words cut deeper than any slap, because she knew who he meant. Ethan.
One night, Daniel came home drunk after a business dinner. He tossed his jacket aside and accused her of flirting with one of his partners. Sarah tried to explain, but his voice rose, harsh, loud, cruel.
He slammed a wine glass against the wall, the red spilling across the marble like blood. "Don't ever embarrass me again," he growled.
Sarah stood there frozen, tears in her eyes, realizing the truth she'd been denying for months. She hadn't chosen love, she'd chosen status. And now she was paying the price. The next morning, her phone buzzed. A news notification. Novatech receives multi-million-dollar investment. Below the headline was Ethan's picture, confident, composed, smiling in a dark suit. She stared at it for a long time. He looked different, stronger, like a man who no longer remembered her. That hurt the most. Sarah started following Ethan's success silently, reading about his company's rise, his interviews, his confidence. Every article reminded her of what she threw away.
"Why are you smiling at your phone?" "Nothing."
From that night, his control tightened even more. He began tracking her, reading her messages, deciding who she could meet. Her golden cage had become her punishment. Meanwhile, Ethan was rising like a storm. He had just opened a second office in New York. Investors loved him, but inside, he carried silence, not peace.
She's the reason I became this.
He didn't hate her anymore. He just didn't feel anything at all. The glitter didn't last. It never does. Daniel's empire, once untouchable, started to crumble. A government audit, a few leaked files, whispers of embezzlement. It all began to surface. Overnight, the man who ruled boardrooms with confidence was dodging questions from the press.
This is your fault. What did I do? You distracted me. Always complaining, always needing attention. You're just like the others.
The next morning, she walked through the rain to a small cafe. She hadn't been there in years. The bell above the door chimed softly, and for a moment, she saw flashes of her past. Ethan smiling across the table, the warmth of something real. She sat in the corner, staring out the window, her hands trembling around a coffee cup. Her phone buzzed again. Breaking news. Novatech acquires majority shares in Daniel & Co. after bankruptcy filing. She blinked in disbelief. Ethan, the same man she'd left for Daniel, now owned everything Daniel had lost. It was poetic, cruel, inevitable. That afternoon, Sarah went to Daniel's old office building, or rather, Ethan's new headquarters. She didn't know why. Maybe guilt, maybe closure. When she reached the lobby, the receptionist looked up. "Receptionist, do you have an appointment?" "Sarah, tell him." "Sarah, Blake is here." Receptionist. "One moment." Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Ethan stepped out. He looked older, calmer, powerful. His expression didn't change when he saw her.
Ethan. Sarah, it's been a long time. Sarah, you look different. Ethan, I should. People change when they stop chasing those who never valued them. Sarah. Ethan, Ethan, don't. Whatever you came to say it to the man you left me for. Sarah, teary. He's gone. Everything's gone. Ethan. That's how karma works, Sarah. It doesn't rush. It waits for the right moment. Sarah, whisper. Do you hate me? Ethan, soft. No. You taught me what love isn't.
As Sarah stood there, surrounded by the empire Ethan built, she realized something horrifying. He hadn't just moved on, he'd won. Regret rain poured relentlessly that night, the kind of storm that doesn't cleanse but punishes. Sarah walked alone through the city streets, her once glamorous life reduced to a tattered coat and an empty purse. Every reflection in the shop windows showed her what she'd become. Not the adored girlfriend of a CEO, not the shining golden woman she once pretended to be, but a broken shadow of her choices. She had sold her heart for wealth, and now both were gone. After Daniel's company collapsed, creditors took everything. The mansion, the cars, even the jewelry she once flaunted. She had no family left who wanted to see her, and her so-called friends had vanished faster than her bank balance. For weeks, she wandered from one temporary job to another. Waitress, receptionist, assistant, never staying long. The moment people recognized her name from Daniel's scandal, they stopped calling her back. And then, fate, cruel, unpredictable fate, brought her to him again. One morning she arrived for a job interview at Novatech's new downtown office. She didn't know who owned it now.
The CEO likes to personally meet certain candidates. You'll be meeting Mr. Reed shortly.
Her stomach twisted. Mr. Reed. When Ethan walked in, she froze. He looked the same, calm, composed, confident, but his eyes were colder now, the kind of cold that comes from being burned once and learning never to play with fire again.
Sarah Blake, interesting to see your name here.
I didn't know this was your company, I swear.
Relax. I'm not here to humiliate you. You need a job. I need people who can work. Let's keep it simple.
Her heart raced. She expected rejection, anger, but instead he was professional.
Thank you.
You start Monday.
For the next few months, Sarah worked quietly under Ethan's company. She avoided him whenever possible, keeping her head down and doing her best. People whispered about their past, but Ethan never mentioned it. He treated her like any other employee. But sometimes, she'd catch him staring out the window, deep in thought, distant, and she'd wonder if he ever thought about the past. She did, every night. One evening, after everyone had left, she gathered the courage to knock on his office door.
Come in.
Ethan, I just wanted to thank you for giving me another chance. You didn't have to.
You think this is about mercy?
Isn't it?
It's about closure, Sarah. You destroyed me once. But now, I needed to see if I could forgive you and still stay strong.
And can you?
I already did.
The silence between them was heavy, not of hatred, but of memories.
You were the only one who ever loved me for who I was, and I destroyed that.
You were young, blind, maybe greedy, but I was blind too. Blind to see that love can't survive when it's one-sided. You don't owe me an apology, Sarah. You owe it to yourself.
That night, Sarah cried for the first time in years, not for losing wealth, or Daniel, or comfort, but for losing herself, and for realizing that Ethan's forgiveness wasn't a second chance to love him, it was a second chance to be human again. The morning sun broke through the glass walls of Novatech, painting the office in gold. It had been almost a year since Sarah rejoined the company, a year of quiet work, long hours, and silent redemption. She had earned the respect of her team, not because of who she used to be, but because of who she had become. No luxury, no lies, just hard work and humility. And though Ethan never mentioned their past again, something unspoken lingered in the air between them. Like a melody they both knew by heart, but were afraid to play again. On a Friday afternoon, Ethan called for a meeting in the boardroom. Sarah sat among the executives, her notes ready, pretending her hands weren't shaking. When the presentation ended, he looked directly at her.
Sarah, you'll be heading our new European branch, Paris office.
The room buzzed with whispers. Sarah blinked in disbelief.
Sir, I don't think I'm the right.
You are. You've proven yourself more than anyone else here.
Her heart raced. Paris, a fresh start, a place to leave everything behind.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Miss Blake.
But his eyes, those familiar gray eyes, carried something deeper, pride, sadness, maybe something that still hadn't died. Her flight was the next morning. That night, she walked down to the waterfront near the old cafe where they had once spent countless evenings, the same cafe where love began and ended. She didn't expect him to come, but he did.
You really love Paris?
I don't know. I just think it's time to start over.
You deserve that.
They stood in silence, the city lights flickering across the water.
You know, for the longest time, I thought love was about what I could get, but now I know it's about what you're willing to give.
And what are you willing to give now?
Everything I once took for granted.
Sarah, people say you can't rebuild what's broken. But maybe some things aren't meant to go back the same way. Maybe they're meant to become something new.
Then let's build something new.
A year later, Paris, a city of rebirth. Sarah stood on the balcony of Novatech Europe, sipping her coffee as the morning breeze played with her hair. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke.
You're still terrible at taking breaks.
I didn't expect you to fly here.
New partnership meetings, and maybe to see if Paris is as magical as they say. It is, because you're here.
As the Eiffel Tower sparkled in the distance, Ethan and Sarah stood side by side, not as boss and employee, not as past lovers haunted by betrayal, but as two souls who had finally learned that love, when rebuilt with truth, can outshine any empire. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't success or power, it's peace.